Hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about wet dreams and what you can do to avoid them. This is a very common question I get. Probably the biggest question I get is how to avoid wet dreams. And I've talked about this in a couple other videos as well, but I'm just going to kind of cover this once again and give you a technique as well that I think will help you to prevent wet dreams. So this is something I dealt with a lot when I was first beginning semen retention. I would have wet dreams, usually about 3 weeks to a month in. I would just inevitably have a wet dream. But through time and practice, fortunately, it's not really something that happens to me anymore. And so I've been able to prevent wet dreams from occurring in my life now. So some of the most common causes I found, number one is sexual fantasies and like sexual thoughts. So if you're like looking at a lot of sexual images and you have all these unfulfilled desires and things like that, typically that will manifest in your sleep and in your dreams, because what happens at night, you go to sleep and your conscious mind sort of shuts off and all of your unconscious desires are free to be expressed in the dream world. And this often results in fantasies being expressed in your dreams or you just kind of release in your sleep. So this is the number one cause of wet dreams. So it's really important that you learn to control your mind, control your thoughts. And I know that this is difficult. As men, we tend to think about sex and a lot, and it takes some training. Meditation has been very helpful for me in learning to control my thoughts and not be sort of taken by sexual fantasies and sexual thoughts all day. So learning to control your mind and keep yourself centered and not in all of these sexual fantasies and things like that is extremely helpful. So spend some time before you go to bed and do a little meditation, maybe do like a little breathing practices, some pranayama and things like that, just to help you center yourself within your body. And you'll find that very helpful for sort of resolving this tension, the sexual tension that you may be feeling. So that's why I practice. Well, it's one of the reasons why I practice qigong and yoga every day. And meditation is to transmute this sexual energy, and so that helps you to not have all this pent up sexual tension. And so that's probably the biggest cause of wet dreams, is just sexual desires being expressed in the sleep. And another very common cause of wet dreams is actually sleeping in a room that's hot, or maybe you're sleeping with too many blankets on you, so the body gets hot. And for whatever reason, this seems to lead to nocturnal emissions occurring. This has been the biggest cause for me, is sleeping in a room that's too hot. I'll wake up kind of sweaty, and I've had an emission in my sleep. When that used to happen to me, that was one of the common causes. And so make sure that if possible, that you're sleeping in a room that's more cool in temperature. It's also very helpful to take a cold shower or like an ice bath, do some cold water submersion before going to bed. That's going to really help you prevent that from happening, because when you're in cold water, your energy in your body tends to contract. So instead of expanding outwards and releasing, you're more in this contracted state, and so you're less likely to have a nocturnal emission. So that's something that I've found very helpful, is taking cold showers before going to sleep, or even an ice bath is even better. So that's been very helpful for me. Some other causes are things like eating foods that cause heat to be produced in the body. So like any spices that heat you up. So like cayenne, just anything strong like that that tends to build heat in the body. And from an energetic standpoint, this is causing our energy to be expansive, and that will make it more likely for you to have a nocturnal emission. And so avoid eating any spicy foods. In fact, avoid eating at all at least a few hours before going to bed if possible. At least 2 hours at the very minimum, but 3 hours is even better, to cut out any food before going to sleep. If you have a big meal and then go to bed immediately after that, it's you're a lot more likely to have a wet dream. So that's something to be aware of. So be mindful of what you're eating. And so those are the most common causes I've found. And just by being aware of those things, I think you'll find that you're able to reduce the amount of wet dreams that you have. And another point I want to make is that sometimes it seems to be just inevitable for some people. So if if it's like happening to you at a certain interval, like maybe like every once a month or every 2 weeks or something, you have a wet dream, don't worry about it too much. Unless you're having like multiple throughout the week, like if it's like every night you're having wet dreams, unless that's happening, just don't worry about it too much, especially if you're younger, because what happens is your body's building up you're retaining your semen, so this fluid kind of it builds up in the body, and it may be that the body just needs to release it from time to time, release that old seminal fluid. And unless you're feeling like completely drained after the nocturnal emission, then it's not a big deal. Like what I found when I did have wet dreams was that usually I didn't feel like I'd had an ejaculation. I felt pretty normal, and so I just stopped worrying about it. And then with time, they stopped happening. So don't worry about it too much. Don't obsess over it. It's nothing to like feel guilty about. You don't want to beat yourself up about it. Just don't worry about it. Just be aware though, and be aware of the things I'm mentioning. And I think that you will notice that the amount of wet dreams you have, if you're experiencing them. Not everyone does, but if you are, I think you will find that they become reduced. And another very helpful thing for me to do, as part of my routine before going to sleep, is to do like some sort of affirmation or like visualization, sort of self-programming that you will not have a wet dream that night. And whatever that may look like for you, do just maybe you feel yourself in the feeling of waking up the next morning and you still have all of your sexual energy intact, you haven't dispersed it in the night, and just feeling energized and rested, and just feel yourself having felt that, to sort of program yourself. And you can even do prayer or something like that if that resonates with you. That can be a powerful method. Whether you believe in a higher force, maybe ask a higher force for help, or ask the universe for help, whatever that looks like for you, just experiment with that and see what that does for you. And just ask to help you retain your semen throughout the night, basically, not lose it to fantasies or whatever. So those are some very helpful things for me. Another thing I want to mention here, and I think this is very important, is that a lot of people practicing semen retention are not really getting the most of that energy, that sexual energy, because to me, as far as sexual cultivation and really working with that sexual energy, building it up is the first step. So semen retention is only the first step in the whole thing for me. After that, you need to be able to transmute that energy, because it's just this raw, sort of like this, what the Chinese call jing, it's just kind of this physical sexual essence. But we need to transform that into something we can actually use, because it really doesn't do you that much good just sitting in your balls. You're going to have more energy and things like that, but like when you learn to transform that energy and move it throughout your body, that's when it really becomes powerful, and that's when you get the most of that energy. So you may not be really digesting that energy, so to speak, and then your body just kind of gets rid of that to create more. And so and basically this is what I teach in my courses and things like that, is how to really move this energy throughout the body and transform it to get the most out of it and to put it into everything that you do, because then you're really tapping into the full potential of semen retention, and you're actually using that energy. It's not just sitting latent in your balls. But I'm going to give you a simple technique that will help you to transmute that energy, move it throughout your body. And I think that you'll find it very helpful for preventing wet dreams. So basically, this is a technique known as testicle breathing. So basically, you just sit in a calm, centered state, and just take a few deep breaths to center yourself. So you take a few deep breaths into your testicles, like you feel like you're breathing down the front of your body into your testicles, and as you inhale into them, your testicles are expanding and contracting as you exhale. Just feel your testicles expanding and contracting with the breath. So you're kind of awakening that latent sexual energy down there without it becoming aroused. And so after you do that a few times, you contract your perineum muscle. So the same muscle you use to hold your bladder, like if you have to urinate, you contract that as you inhale, and exhale, relax that muscle. And now, after doing that a few times, so you kind of activate that testicle energy, you bring it up the spine to the crown of the head. So you can roll your eyes up as you inhale. So as you inhale, you squeeze the perineum and feel like you're breathing the energy up to your brain. Doing that a few times. Looking up as you inhale, relaxing on the exhale. And then after doing that a few times, you can bring it down from the brain, the front of the body, into the belly center, which is the lower dantian, which is a storage space for energy. It's sort of this portal for energy to be refined. It's sort of a stove. We digest and we store our energy here in the lower dantian, so you can bring it down the front of the body, where it can be further refined in our lower dantian. And then, if you know the microcosmic orbit meditation, which is basically just the main energy channel up the back of the body, down the front, you can just breathe through your microcosmic orbit a few times. And you can squeeze the perineum with the inhale. So you squeeze, bringing the energy up the back, inhaling, exhale down the front of the body, relaxing. Just doing this a few times. And then just put your attention in your belly. Just feel everything condensing here. And that's it. So that's a great thing to do. Well, it's a great thing to do any time of the day, but especially before you go to bed at night, it will help you to kind of transmute some of that sexual energy, and you will be much less likely to have a wet dream. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. Try out these techniques and let me know how it worked for you. Leave a comment. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're interested in learning more about testicle breathing and some of the other practices, check out my website. I've got a guided testicle breathing session on there, and I've got a full-length course to teach you how to really gain control of your sexual energy and really empower yourself with that, and have orgasms without ejaculating and become a masterful lover. So check that out. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Like this video. Have a great day.